Hey everyone, it is Coach Dave March here for another episode of the Growth Mindset Podcast. And if you don't know, if you're new to us here, we bring on a lot of innovative, interesting, and really just cool entrepreneurs that are really doing big things. And today we have our special guest, Jill. Jill is the CEO of Accrew, an accounting company that makes accounting simple. Jill, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience here?
I run an accounting firm. It's a small boutique accounting business, and we have a team of about 10 to 12 people, and we specialize in making accounting not terrible to interact with. So we're outsourced accountants. We're kind of dispersed across the United States. Everyone on our team has a flexible schedule and can kind of pick when they work, but the way that we work is very digital, and everyone has to do things that people typically do either over the phone or in real time or in real space, like in-person meetings. We do it all digitally, which is not that uncommon anymore in accounting, but it can be really hard to communicate with your accountant when you speak kind of different languages. And so we specialize in communicating really effectively with our clients so that they have an enjoyable experience and can actually get things done in a way that doesn't add a lot of time or stress to their lives. So yeah, the thing we do sounds really boring, but we do it in a really fun way. And I really love leading the team that I have. And I really love impacting a company that traditionally is not very growth oriented, growth mindset oriented, but there's a lot of room for improvement in the accounting industry. And we're looking to do things pretty differently because it doesn't have to be the way it's always been.
Love it, love it. Leading the way, leading the way.
Hopefully.
Awesome. The accounting world can definitely get I don't want to say boring, but it just can get
No,
I don't know,
we're not the
stale.
life of the party.
Yeah, a little stale. Yeah,
Not typically. We can be, but not typically. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But you are bringing a lot of like good communication skills and everything to that. And as we go through life here in 2025, communication skills and soft skills are just going to be more and more important because a lot of those technical skills and such can be done with all the different tools that are out. So
100%.
really
Yeah.
connecting heart to heart with people, being that leader at the end of the day that can guide someone through their financials and then help them understand the story that the numbers are telling them. That's
Mhm.
that's that's really impactful.
Yeah, you nailed it. That's exactly right. We are of the philosophy that AI will not replace accountants, but accountants who can leverage AI will absolutely replace accountants who can't. And so our team is fully aware that a lot of what we do is getting faster and getting more automated, and there are tools that are helping us do things faster or better or, more precisely or whatever. And so some of the things that our team is good at in, 5 or 10 years may be obsolete, but the things that won't are the critical thinking and the ability to translate something from accounting speak into plain English for a business owner who runs a plumbing company to be able to understand not just what is happening, but also how it impacts them. And that's the story of what your finances can say to a business owner is, here's what's happening and here are the choices in front of you that you can make that could really impact the trajectory of your business. And I don't know how much technology will be able to do that human piece. Another thing is this is internal and external. So with clients, there's very much a human piece that we want to interact with people like they are important, like they are worth treating well. And so when you interact with a robot, it doesn't always feel the warmest. And that goes for human robots as well. A lot of accountants kind of translate into that, where it's just kind of get the job done, check the box, finish the work. That's what we're doing here. That's the job. But from our perspective, the job really is that connection piece and that ability to kind of, yeah, just like show up as a person to other people, to our clients in particular, because, you're closing down your business. A lot of accountants hear that and they think, crap, we lost a client. And when we hear that, we're like, wait, are you retiring? Are you selling it? Like, are these things we can celebrate with you because you're a person and this is your life? It's not just, oh
Mm.
no, we lost a client. It's like, no, you're you're retiring. That's like a huge deal. And so to have an accountant who actually cares about you as a person is a very different experience than just having one who's all about the bottom line or just checking the box or whatever. And that also applies internally too in the way that we lead our team. We're just a very human centric company and we really embrace technology because we have to. We're totally remote distributed, but the people who work with us are worth investing in. And so we spend a lot of time and energy and effort, yeah, just helping our team grow and change. And a growth mindset is a huge part of how we operate. It's like a non-negotiable in our hiring process.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's fun to talk about because it's what I do basically every day.
Awesome. Yeah, and it definitely speaks to the emotional intelligence that you have as well, right? I mean, it's it's not all numbers and cents. You really got to get into the feelings of how things, because it's like a lot of people have a lot of emotional feelings about their money.
Mhm. It's very personal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to be able to know how to handle that and speak to those concerns that they might have. And like you were saying, it flows through to the way that you lead as well.
Mhm.
So talk to me more about like the kind of culture that's there and how you can really build out that high performance culture.
Yeah, it's really hard in this day and age to not feel like that's a binary decision. It's either high performers or it's a healthy culture. And I feel like they're not mutually exclusive. Our company culture is very much like excellence is what we're aiming for. It's not perfection because perfection's an illusion, but it is excellence. And so we expect our team to be consistently getting better. Like, so, not comparing yourself to other people necessarily, but comparing yourself to yourself yesterday is a great motto to live by. And I am of the belief that you can teach someone the hard skills of almost anything. Not anyone, but like most people, you could teach them how to do a thing. You can't teach someone how to be a different person. And so being someone who wants to grow is a non negotiable in our company. And so, we're weeding that out in the hiring process. But then that means that by the time you're actually working at our company, and especially by the time you pass your intro period, we've vetted that not only are you someone with a growth mindset who sees yourself as malleable and capable of change and progress, but that you're actually excited by that. You're not just doing it because you have to, because it's part of your job, but it actually like makes you happy to do that. It makes you excited. So there's a lot that happens in our hiring process and a lot that happens in that intro period that kind of really like tests people. It puts people through the gauntlet of like how hard it is to change because we like to think about it in the abstract as just positive. But I think what we tend to do is forget that it is really painful to do. It's like to actively engage in change is really painful most of the time. Even when you want it, even when you think you want it, it's still really challenging. It makes you uncomfortable. You fail. A baby literally cannot learn to walk without falling. So if you always protect a baby from falling, they will never learn how to walk. And I think it's a good analogy for growth and change is like you have to be willing to say, I'm going to mess this up. And that's going to be part of growing. That's really uncomfortable. And it's really hard for people to do, especially people who feel like they can already do the job, feel like they go to webinars and workshops and I'm constantly growing. And what they mean is they're constantly going to a place where someone is teaching them a thing. But to grow and change is a much more personal thing. It's a much more flawed, non-linear thing. And so we spend a lot of time at the beginning of someone's employment just kind of working through what they will need to learn and change about how they operate in order to be successful at our company. So from our perspective, our job in management, my job as the CEO, is to clarify what doing a good job means, what it looks like, what our expectations are, what the deliverables are, but also like what it looks like to have done a good job. Not just that you finished, but that you finished well. We have to define that. And then our secondary job is to support people in getting there. But one of the things that I learned pretty early on in my management career was that you cannot pull people along. They have to want it for themselves and they have to do it themselves. Otherwise, you're kind of robbing them of the opportunity to enjoy the success of it at the end. You're robbing them of the learning of how they got there and how uncomfortable that was, but what they gained through the discomfort. And so I used to try to pull people along when I first joined the company. It was a big shift for everybody because we had very clear expectations. And it was a pretty sudden shift for a lot of the company. Now we have really hard deadlines, and now there's someone holding you accountable. And now you have to like actually just explain why it's not done or explain, like it was just a very big culture shift when I joined. And that was really hard for a lot of people because it was different and people get used to what they are used to. They get used to how you've treated them historically. And so bringing someone in and then having really clear expectations was really jarring for a lot of the team. And what it gave us was insight into who wasn't really interested in doing that. Like you can get a really clear sense really early that like if you don't like clear expectations, you're probably not going to be a good fit here. So that's, the first part is those clear expectations. The second part is I can help you get there, but I can't get there for you. And I learned really early pulling someone along or trying to get them to want to be successful is just not going to work. And so, yeah, it means that by this point, 5 years into the company and many years into my career, I have a really amazing team of people who hold themselves accountable because we have systems that require that, where we have checks and balances. And it takes a lot of work on the back end to make it possible. But because we hire the way that we do, because we train the way that we do, and because we have the systems that we do for people to hold themselves accountable, it means that even if you decide that your workday is, 9 p.m. to 4 a.m., like, okay, did you finish your work on time? Is it good? Did you message everyone you needed to? Did you respond in the time frame that is part of our expectations? Then you did it. But it requires, I think I said this in a conversation that we've had before, but with great flexibility comes great responsibility. They
Yes.
go hand in hand,
Yeah.
and you cannot have a flexible schedule and not be able to hold yourself accountable. But that's not intuitive to us as humans, and particularly humans who have worked in in-person work environments for a long time. It becomes really hard to do that in your own home when your kids are running around or when,
Yep.
you've got dishes piling up or Netflix is right there. Like it's really
So
hard.
many
So
distractions so close
so many.
by.
Yeah, so many. It at this point we just have an excellent team with excellent systems that make it easy for this to function. But when it doesn't, it is glaringly obvious and we just run toward the fire. Fires do not go out on their own. They go out when you put them out. And so when we see a tiny wastebasket fire, we go run toward it because we don't want it to turn into a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
That's
You want
our
to be more
philosophy.
proactive instead of
Yeah.
reactive.
Totally. And sometimes you have to be reactive because you can't have seen it
Yeah.
coming. But
Yeah.
that reaction is as quick as possible. The idea that like if I just close my eyes,
Yeah.
it will go away is just it's a myth. It's not real.
Yeah, there's three things that I picked up from what you're saying. The first one was the definition of done. I think that comes from
Um,
who, not how.
yeah.
And so that's the first one. Second thing was about building an environment of psychological safety because you want them to fail. And if people are scared to fail or scared to say
I'm scared to
something
ask for
wrong
help.
and
Yeah.
ask for help, they're never going to do that. But the third thing, and it's um, probably the most interesting from like a psychological point of view, is how far down you can go actually determines how far up you can go.
Ooh. Ooh. Go on. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. I knew you'd like
Yeah,
that one.
it's interesting.
Save the best for last in that one. But yeah, I mean, just from the idea of like, and this isn't just with work. This is with life. There's
Mm.
people that like only are like doing uppers or trying
Mm.
to be up all the time, trying to be positive all the time, and they don't want to let themselves feel down at all. Oh, I made a mistake. I did something wrong, or they're sad about something. But generally speaking, actually, how far down you can go it determines how far up you can go. So yeah, it's quite an interesting idea.
That is a fascinating way to kind of synthesize that because think that people who tend to not want to expose a mistake, for example, like that's something that we come across a lot. Accountants like to be perfect and they like everything that they did to be perfect. And so when you struggle to even acknowledge that you made a mistake, it's really hard to realize that it happened, to have someone else realize that it happened. It's hard to like own that and fix it. And it makes it feel like a huge deal. And it means that you're limiting how much you can actually grow from that experience too, because you're just kind of hoping it ends as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And one of the systems that we have in our company in the training process is how to own a mistake well. And it's not something people mostly teach because you just don't want people to make mistakes. But the reality is like, they will. Like it's inevitable. And it's a little naive to think that they wouldn't. So like teaching people to do that effectively and own it well is like one of the primary things we teach. I mean, there's a lot of things that you learn in the onboarding process, but in our kind of initial training, that's one of the things. And I think it gives people the skills to do that. So there's a framework of like, this is what happened. This is what I've done to fix it. This is how I'm going to make sure it never happens again. Like it's just a very simple kind of framework for how to do that. And that goes internally when you make a mistake as well as to clients when you make a mistake. But it also makes it innocuous to make a mistake. It says to people, this is something we already expect to happen. So like we won't be surprised. And it says that we've already thought about this and like you will be in crisis when you make a mistake, but this will like center you and kind of bring you down to earth about what is and isn't a big deal so that you can just approach this with a solution orientation. We can have an after action review later if something really went wrong and we need to kind of talk about what's going to happen next. But for the most part, like the pretty minor things, like we primarily do bookkeeping. We don't do any tax. And so when you don't do tax, there are just no accounting emergencies for the most part. Like we don't do payroll. So like anything with like a really tight timeline, like we tend not to do those things. Our company does more of the accounting side. We want to make sure that the numbers tell the story. And so there are just no bookkeeping or accounting emergencies. And so it allows people the space to kind of learn the skill of self-regulating at work when you've made a mistake. Like, how do you bring yourself down? How do you calm down? How do you logically present the information to the people that need to know it so that you can just solve the
That's
problem
a big,
instead of,
big piece. That's a big piece.
yeah,
Just being overwhelmed
yes,
is the
it's
thing we
so
don't talk about
human.
enough. We don't
Yeah,
talk
but
about it enough. Yeah.
it's really human and it's like it's biological. Like you can feel I mean, I actually made a mistake on Friday and sent something to someone that I was not supposed to. It was not a big deal, but the relationship is in a position where I'm waiting to hear from them on something. And so it was like terrible timing. Like
Mm.
not a big problem, but like bad timing. And I just like instantly went into crisis mode of like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I just made this mistake. And I had to kind of talk myself down from it and go, okay, how big of a deal is this? What do I need to do to communicate with them? And how much of this do I actually like own? Or does that make it more of a problem than it actually is? Am I making this about how it makes me feel that I made this mistake? Or am I making this about just this thing happened and it's pretty low problem. Like it's a
Yeah.
pretty like
Yeah.
low grade problem. And at the end of it, I was like, wow, that was not a big deal. And I don't know how it affected them, but I didn't turn it into a bigger deal than it was. But it would be very easy for me to do that. I have done that before where I just kind of overreact and make it a bigger thing that it is over, like falling over myself, apologizing. And the reality is, like, if you're not regulated in that moment, you can't really see things from the other person's perspective and go, well, if I were in their shoes, would I think this was a big deal? If I got this email, would I think it was a bigger deal than it is? Like, how would they feel? And that is really hard to do when you're in crisis.
Yeah, definitely nervous system regulation is not something we're taught at all.
No.
I'm
No.
not I remember zero training on how to regulate, emotionally regulate or anything regulate.
Yeah. I think that's one of the marks of someone who has a growth mindset is you've never been taught this thing, but you want to learn it anyway. Like
Mhm.
no one taught
Yeah.
me, how to regulate my emotions, but I still find it valuable and am
Yeah.
willing to do it imperfectly until I get to the point where I'm good at it. But
Yeah.
How did you come to the conclusion that you valued like nervous system regulation? Like what kind of led you to that conclusion?
Nah, that's a good one. And yeah, coming down to Charleston, there's a this decent spiritual community here.
Hmm.
I go to a lot of events and stuff, and there's one holistic chiropractor
Hmm.
that talks about it all the time.
Hmm.
And she would, just constantly be talking about it. And, I'd go there for the different events that she has. I was like, wow, this really makes a lot of sense. I like it. And yeah, then you start to try it out and you say, oh wow, this is a really important piece. How do I do this? How do I um get get back control over my own emotions? Because they
Hmm.
can kind of run the show.
Hmm.
Yeah, through the people I meet and through my own experience, because I have a one might say an insatiable knowledge, insatiable desire for knowledge. Lots of
Yeah.
reading, lots of understanding of things, and yeah, just down the rabbit hole I go.
Cool. So fun. I'm also curious when you talk about like a growth mindset or being like voracious for knowledge
Knowledge.
or learning. What are some of the indicators when you're talking to someone who might be a potential client or a potential, I don't know, mentor even? Like what are some of the indicators that you have that someone shares that passion or has a growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset?
Yeah. Well, for me, I kind of work off the vibe or the energy that that person has, which is very subtle, and not everybody has that kind of ability.
Mm.
But that's kind of the first thing. Really, kind of the response to challenges is a big piece for me.
Mm.
How people respond to a challenge or something I might give them, or that sort of thing. From the book by Carl, whatever her name is, I can't remember her last name, but the actual book, The Growth Mindset, what she talked about was like the difference between a person with a fixed mindset and a growth mindset is actually the bias for action.
Mm.
People with a growth mindset can be someone that like actually has a lot of, well, I should say, let me start with fixed mindset. So when someone has a fixed mindset, what she talks about is like they have a lot of knowledge and intelligence, and they think that talent alone should bring them to the next level.
Mm.
That's kind of fixed. The growth mindset is they know they have intelligence, they know they have all this information, they know they have talent, but they believe that talent alone is not going to get them there. They have a
Mm.
bias towards action, towards working at it, towards working hard, and determination through challenges and through change.
Mm.
So that's kind of where I see the main piece is between
Yeah.
the two of them. And in the end of the final like summation, it is all about who you're becoming.
Mm.
And if you're going to becoming if you're going to be someone that has a fixed mindset, um, you're going to be someone that uh, isn't going to kind of look for more details, go through challenges, and put yourself in uncomfortable positions. So it's really who you're becoming day to day. So yeah, it's kind of a big concept there.
Hmm. Yeah. When you talk about like how people respond to challenges, what are some of the things that you hear that indicate like you're ready for this change or you're ready for this challenge versus like things that you hear from people that you're like, "Oh, you're not ready yet."
Yeah, it's typically number one, how long they've been working with that challenge.
Mm.
It's the number one thing is like how long they've been struggling with this, because um I really like the idea of inspiring people to take action. And I think it's great, but at the same time, it's like a few people actually make change because of revelation or inspiration, a realization. It's usually that they've been struggling with this for a while.
Yeah,
And
the impetus for change is often discomfort,
yeah, yes,
not
yeah,
inspiration. Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
interesting distinction.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, like very few people would do that. Like like for me, I took a road trip down here to Charleston, South Carolina, with no other impetus, but I just felt like doing it. Well, most people are like, well, I had a family member that was sick, and I had to get down there. I had a job that was down there. I had a girlfriend, wife, husband, whatever it is that was down there. So it has to be some kind of thing that like pushes them. It's typically not like I just felt inspirationally led in the moment. It almost sounds like a joke just saying that.
You know what's so funny? I moved to Portland, Oregon from California like 3 years ago now. And we moved because we knew eventually we wanted to live in either London or Amsterdam. Those are like two of our favorite cities. And I am a California kid from birth. I lived in Pennsylvania for like a year and a half, but like I've not done proper like winters in a long time. And so we were like, you know what? We know two people in Portland and we love it as a city. As you know, it's got good food, it's got, you know, enough culture, enough interesting things. It's beautiful. Let's do it. And so we were inspired to move and we didn't have to, like we just chose to. And I found a lot of people were very confused by it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly my
like,
point.
what do you mean? But why?
Yeah, exactly my point. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, and so it's like it's usually challenging from my perspective, from the point of view of like people really just want to work with me once they get laid off. It's
Mm,
like there has to be some like loss or like
mm.
and I mean it could be the same thing about like preventative medicine. It's
Yeah.
like I didn't start going to the doctor until I had this unbearable pain in my back.
Mhm.
Few people are proactive enough to like 10, 15 years before they have the pain. They're going to be like, I think I should do something on my back.
Mhm. Totally. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really interesting distinction. So, have you come across a lot of people who are inspired to engage in change and growth because of inspiration and not challenge or friction?
I don't come across it often, much at
Because
all.
it's so uncomfortable.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Interesting.
Tony Robbins has a thing that's just coming to me in this moment where he talks about it's like the movie like the Scrooge and the ghost of like Christmas Past and all these things where like the person has to go through so much pain and like they have like this like in the movie like they go through all these like dream states or like kind of situational things that brings them along so much pain. And like it's kind of like if you if you don't do this, then this is what's going to happen to you, and this is what's going to happen, this is going to happen, and you're going to lose everything. And like they have to get to a point where they have so much pain and they finally want to get rid of the pain. um Now they want to kind of make a change.
Mhm.
And, that's the way he talks about making change. It has to be so painful for you to stay the same that you'll do it. And unfortunately, that is the key to most times. Yeah.
And the other side of that is the prospect of pain. So, like, fear is a powerful motivator, which is why many managers will use it as a way of motivating people, but it's only sustainable in short bursts. It's not
Yeah.
really sustainable across time. And so, like, thinking about like the ghost of future past is the pain, but like the ghost of future or ghost of whatever future, the
Yeah.
future is really like this is what could be, and that's not pain, that's the prospect of pain. It's fear, and
Yeah.
that fear is highly motivating for us. If we can catch it before we experience the pain, it's still really motivating, but it's not sustainably motivating. So there's a switch, I think, as I'm saying this, I'm realizing there's a switch that happens in specific people, I think people with a growth mindset, where you move from either experiencing pain and that being the driving force, or experiencing fear and of pain and that being the driving force to growth. But at a certain point, it's got to switch over to excitement. And I actually would parallel that with like there's the idea that the emotion of it's not fear, maybe fear, but one of anxiety, or not anxiety, there's one of the emotions that's like basically when you're like ready to jump off a cliff.
Mm.
You can either
Anxiety.
be terrified
Yeah.
or you can be excited, and you can flip the switch on that by choice to some
Yeah.
extent. It's
Yeah.
why I love roller coasters and my husband hates them. Or,
Yeah.
like, jump off a cliff in Hawaii and he, like, will not.
Yeah.
But, like, there's something that switches with mindset people where it stops being only motivated by something negative and becomes something that you actually legitimately enjoy. And that, I think, is where the real, like, magic happens. It's not just that you're okay with the pain of growth because it's better than the pain you could experience without the growth. It's that you start getting, like, actually excited about who you could become in the process of growing.
Yeah, totally. And one like inspiring piece I heard was like, there's pain either way. There's
Yeah.
pain that's staying the same, and
Yeah.
then there's growing pains.
Yeah.
So
Pain is inevitable, suffering is not.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, totally. That's like I think that's a Buddhist.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I read a mindfulness book before I gave birth to my daughter because I was like, "I've never done this before. I should probably figure out how to navigate something I've never experienced before that's going to be painful." And so it was a really helpful book in that experience, but also in just the parenting experience or just like life in general. Like pain is inevitable, suffering is optional, and the
Mhm.
way that we frame our experience has a lot to do with whether or not we suffer within that. And I opt not to as often as
Love it.
possible. It's not that I never do, but like if I can reframe something hard into something good, I will 9 times out of 10. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, this has been a great episode here.
I feel like we could talk for another half hour, but I feel like we should get it off
Yeah,
there.
this has been a great episode here. Yeah, I mean, you were definitely hitting a lot of interesting points here. As we start to, wind this down, is there any kind of, let's say, books that you want to make a recommendation for? And, kind of any inspiring quotes or some books you want to make a recommendation for before we end this off here?
Well, as I was thinking about this before today, I was thinking about how influential the book Radical Candor has been in just how I manage people.
Mm,
It's I don't know if you've read it, but it's, like,
haven't.
such a good reframing of, like, honesty and directness in the workplace and just how you can actually care about someone and also tell them a hard truth, and how you can do that in a way that feels both caring and challenging. I find it so helpful. I think it directly relates to any kind of coaching as well, but we have a tendency as people to either be, like, overly blunt and be like, "Well, you shouldn't care, like, I'm telling you the truth, you're welcome," and then forget to care about them personally, or we care so personally that we won't challenge them directly because we're afraid that it'll hurt their feelings or it'll damage the relationship. And the reality is, it'll damage the relationship if you don't tell people the truth. So if you can be radically candorous, I don't know. If you can demonstrate radical candor with people around you, particularly people that you manage, and be really clear about like what is and isn't working and where people can grow, it's like a game changer for being able to engage in this kind of growth mindset work as a leader, but also it helps other people feel psychologically safe in the environments that they're in. If you can make that a universal culture where you are, it makes a huge difference. So that's one that I really, really love. I think I recommended to you in like on the sales side of things. I don't love everything in the book, but Chris Voss wrote Never Split the Difference. I find it very interesting. I think it has a lot to do with like the way that we think as humans and the way that we deal with stress and the way that we talk to people in situations. It was very helpful for me and just kind of some of that like emotional regulation at work and just like be the lowest heart rate in the room and make sure that you're not losing control because you're feeling things. But that's really helpful for me. Yeah. But I
Totally.
also love business books. So we could keep going on this. But those are two of my top recommendations.
Yeah, this is a topic I think both of us are pretty passionate about.
Yeah,
We
for
can we
sure.
can keep going on.
Yeah. What are you
But
reading
yeah,
right now?
what's that? What am I reading?
Yeah.
The last book that I was reading, really like, I can't remember her name right now. Here it is. Sue Moiter, Seven Levels, Seven Energy Levels. I really like listening to Michael B. Beckwith, which is sort of like a mystic or spiritual guru. And she takes a lot of what Michael B. Beckwith talks about and comes at it from with a like a scientific kind of edge because it is a lot of like metaphysical concepts.
Mm.
but she comes at it with a really like scientific edge, which is really interesting. So
Cool.
yeah. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm always looking for a good book recommendation, so I like to hear what anyone's reading.
Yeah, so that's a really a fun book. It's not necessarily business oriented, but I mean, if you consider emotional regulation to be a good business skill, then it is business related.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Well, Jill, this has been great episode here. Tell the people where they can find you, any websites or how they can contact you. Yeah.
Yeah, our company is called Accrew. It's ACCREW.io. You can find us there or just Google us. Accrue is an accounting word, but we also have a crew of people who do the work. And so it's a fun play on words. But ACCREW.io is a great place to find us. And yeah, if we can meet your needs, we will. We're also big on if it's not a good fit, we should not work together. Very much like win-win or no deal. That's also from Never Split the Difference. But yeah, if we're not both going to win, we should not even start. So we'll definitely have the conversation with anyone. But yeah, if we're a good fit, we'll work together. If we're not, we'll do our best to refer you to someone in our network. We're all about kind of being generous with what we have, including our referral network. And so if we can help people, we want to. And also if it's not a good fit, we shouldn't just be like, "Let's make it work." You wouldn't work with someone who wasn't ready to get your coaching just because they were like, "But I want it." It's like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, but you're not ready."
Yeah. Not gonna do the work at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Totally. Well, thanks for jumping on here, Jill.
Thank you for
We're
having me.
we're gonna sign off here in the Growth Mindset podcast.
Thanks.
Bye bye.